Hey guys, Gaz back here, doing this Slay the Spire coaching thing with Screwyioux, aka Jake from the Making Luck Dominion podcast. Which, if you like Dominion, is quite a good podcast, so you should check it out. Anyway, he's doing a silent run on Ascension Mode 6. I'm just gonna go through this and sort of give my thoughts and opinions on the decisions he makes, maybe what I would do instead. And the first option of any game, unless you messed up Act 1 previously, is you get these 4 choices from this big whale person. So Jake, what he does is
which one of these things is best.
He gives no real sort of thoughts or anything. He just sort of clicks on the rare card. So just to rewrite so we can look at these again. So what I do in this situation is I look at my map, see what the act looks like, and that does affect my decision making to an extent. I mean, sometimes it won't. Sometimes you'll just have like a common relic and a load of other garbage, so you're going to pick the common relic no matter what. But it still doesn't hurt to look at the act now, because you're going to do that after you pick the choice anyway, so there's really no reason not to just do it first. So things that I'm looking out for: the final boss is important because that can affect card decisions. Some cards are just better against some bosses. Maybe we'll get into examples of that as the run goes on. Other things are how many elites I can fight, sort of the maximum number, the minimum number, how flexible I can be with my pathing, whether I can go on a path that can fight 3 or 4 elites, whether I'm locked into that or whether I can kind of bail halfway through and turn off and not take those fights. There's a butterfly outside, that's nice. So these options in particular, this option here to exchange your starting relic is always available. It's quite high variance. You can get like an energy relic and be very happy, or something else and maybe you're not so happy. This rare card is also quite high variance. Some of the rare cards are strong, some of them are almost curses, for a while at least, the more niche cards, I'd say. And then this 3 potions option, there's no real downside to this apart from like the opportunity cost of not picking another one of these. I guess I've not spoken about max HP. I really like 14 max HP. I think it's very strong. I think you can get a lot of value over the course of a run from this in terms of using that HP to fight elites, to upgrade instead of rest, maybe, to you also kind of just heal more whenever you rest or between acts, because it's like a percentage of your sort of HP. So I think you do get a lot of value from this over the course of a run, and I think it's pretty easy to miss how much value you're getting from it. And of course it just helps you not die because you have more health. But obtaining a curse is the worst downside, I think, by far, and I don't think I would ever actually take this option if it gives a curse. Maybe under very weird circumstances I would, but I don't think that happens ever realistically. So on this difficulty level, I would take the potions. They help you fight elites a lot. They're very, very good. 3 random potions will let you fight elites and take a lot less damage than otherwise. It's kind of similar to the 1 HP option, which I guess is sort of the most obvious thing about looking at the map first as well. Maybe I could add is you can look and see whether you can take an elite in the first 3 fights, and if you can, then that option's pretty good. I wouldn't automatically pick it if that's the case, but it's much stronger than otherwise, because I think if you're not getting elite with it, it doesn't actually do really anything. Anyway, So I would take the potions, it's just pure upside, whereas these have a more sort of tangible downside to them. And I also think it might actually, well, it's not as high upside as some of the others, but you take 1,000 cuts and then you look at the map, choose your path. I don't believe you really scroll up very much, and actually, oh, you do a little bit, but you kind of stop halfway and don't actually look at the final boss or the later half of the act, and that's just as important as looking at the first part, you know, because you've got to be locked into what you can do somewhat. So it's very important that you do that, because I think in this run your card choices for the most part are reasonable. Probably not exactly what I would do, but they're reasonable for sure. I don't really think that's a weakness of your play in this run in particular. I think it very much is your kind of your pathing and maybe what you buy in shops, but we'll see when we come to that. Sorry about that, I just opened my Slay the Spire because I might want to look at some card lists or something. Where are my notes? Jesus, this is very professional quality piece of content. So okay, we can move on to the fights now. It's hard to talk about your exact path because I can't really look at the whole map at once, but I will say that on this map that you have, you can take a path that can fight 1 elite, 2 elites, 3 elites, or 4 elites with a kind of number of campfires on exactly how you handle that, and that is almost the perfect path I think you can take in an act, because it just gives you so much flexibility. If you're running well and your deck's set up well against elites, you can fight 4 of them potentially and get a lot of value from all of the relics and the rewards you get from those. And if you're struggling against elites, then you can opt out and take a path where you don't fight so many. And I think it's hard to overstate how good that is, that option is. So in this fight, I'm not sure, you maybe could play things a little differently, but I think you do play this fight pretty reasonably overall. Some silly mistakes do slip in some of your encounters, but a lot of them I think are pretty obvious. If you sort of look back over the run, you should be able to tell how good they are. Some of the things are maybe more subtle, you know, sort of things where you're deciding whether you want to sort of do damage first at the cost of taking some more damage now, or whether you just want to tank up now and take all the hits but do no damage. And those I think kind of are tricky sometimes. Anyway, your first card choice moving forward is between Backstab, Cloud, and Blade Dance. I think this is pretty easily not Blade Dance. That card, I think I would only ever really consider taking that if I had like Shuriken or Kunai or something. Like even with After Image or 1,000 Cuts, I just don't think this card is very strong. In Act 1 for sure, because of Gremlin Knob. Like, you know, you really don't want your attacks to be powering up Gremlin Knob. But Backstab is a very, very strong card in Act 1, so I'll be very happy to pick that up. Crippling Cloud is also a strong card. It's pretty nice against Slime Boss once it splits as well. Although I'm not sure what your boss is, I think it's the Guardian. But anyway, you pick Backstab, I agree with this. And here's the first part of the run where I think maybe I slightly disagree with your decision, although, man, it's really not a big window you've given us to look at the actual map between these. I guess I can look after. No, okay. I know there's different buttons I can be pressing to move the video along, but I forgot what they are. Oh, Jesus. Okay, smaller crest. In the future, make it easier to... Missed it. I don't even know what's going on here. Okay, it went full screen. Man, this is awful. I guess I'll just watch this. So, removing cards is fine, but okay, quickly. No, okay. I forgot that I wanted to do that. Well, okay. We'll just talk about this without looking at the map. It wasn't that important. So, removing cards is quite good. I don't think at this stage in the game it's all upside, because you do want to be able to do damage, and almost all of your damage is coming from strikes at the moment, so removing a strike actually hurts your damage output by a pretty significant amount. You're also taking 7 HP, which is not negligible. That's HP that you could be investing in an elite fight, for example, or maybe another event further down the road. And you have this option of 50 to 80 gold. Removing a card in a shop costs 75 gold, which is slightly more than that option gives you on average, I imagine. I don't really know exactly how the destroy works, whether it's just a random number between 50 and 80, or whether it's like certain particular amounts you can get. I'm not sure. I think I would actually destroy here. Free gold is nice. I think free gold is better than damage for card remove at this part of the game, and you can just use that gold towards removing a card from the shop. And I think there are other ways that you can make your deck kind of more reliable than removing strikes and defends. Anyway, we move on to this fight. Do you play the 1,000 cuts here?
This fight's gonna be hard.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether playing the cuts is worth it here. You have removed a strike, so your damage output isn't great anymore. But you do take 4 damage because you did that instead of playing a defend plus a strike. And I'm not sure the 1,000 cuts ends up doing much more damage than a strike would have done. So I think you probably just survive a defend strike backstab there. But apart from that, I think you play the fight fairly reasonably. Excuse me, sorry. And the second card choice we get, I think this is clear footwork. I think it's against Crippling Cloud and footwork this time, and footwork is very, very good. It's a premium card. Dexterity is just incredibly powerful. And moving on, we get to this fight. And I think you play this fight fine. Won't waste too much time there. Okay, here is a pretty interesting card choice. I think each one of these cards is defendable. I might lean towards picking up a Predator here. You've removed the strike. You have added a footwork, so your block is better than you really need it to be for this part of the game. I think you're blocking for more than adequate amounts at the moment, so your priority is to add more damage to the deck, and Predator is very good at doing that. Being a 2 energy cost attack, it just means you can put more of your energy into attacking. I do think the Cloak is a good pick as well. It works with the 1,000 cuts, and it's just a good card anyway. It works with the footwork, but I would consider the Predator here. I would probably take Predator if I were you.
1,000 cuts and then trying to Cloak and Dagger.
But I think Cloak and Dagger is perfectly reasonable.
Still good with that.
Maybe
maybe I want to consider just not taking the card too. I feel like they don't do that enough.
Okay, so we go into this fight. Oh, there was one quick thing that I wanted to say, which I have already said in my other video, and this is a re-record because I think I could have done a better job than the first one of these I did. I've already messed this one up a little bit, but anyway. You say at the start that you want to avoid early fights. You want to prioritize fights early, because of course the first 3 fights from a weaker enemy pool, like you don't see fights like this. And also just card choices, you need them. You just need to add cards to your deck. Anyway, I think, well, let's see, how much damage can you do? You can do 11 plus 12, 23 damage, so you can kill this most of the way. If you play the cloak, you can actually just kill this. I think I prefer getting footwork into play than killing it, but I would consider just strike, backstab, footwork here. I think you play the 1,000 cuts again, which isn't awful, but I think you just need to kind of calculate things a little bit more. I do think this fight goes fine for you. I'm gonna move.
Well, how's it doing now then?
Okay, sorry about that. I did ask that one to be quiet. If he came upstairs, of course, he comes upstairs shouting with a laptop playing something loudly and goes in the shower. So I moved, and now I'm going to move away again and try and cut that part out of the video. I'll re-listen to it and see how awful it is. Anyway, I think this pick is between Slice and Bouncing Flask. Your damage output is still very low, so you need to increase it. Backflip doesn't. I think you are blocking for more than enough to not need a backflip. The Bouncing Flask does quite a lot of damage. Although it's not an amazing card, I think it is probably just kind of an awkward enough card. You don't have to take it here. And I don't mind the Slice. I think your reasoning for picking up the Slice is because it works well with 1,000 cuts, because it costs 0, so it lets you play more cards. I don't really think that's a useful way to think about the game in general. Like, it is if you have 2 cards that have a similar function, but one sort of synergizes better with things you have than the other, e.g. if the choice was Backflip and Cloak and Dagger, I think you can take the Cloak and Dagger over Backflip because it works better with the 1,000 cuts, because they're both just kind of cards that block and then have kind of other things going on. But really, you should be thinking, I've removed a strike, I've added a backstab, but really I need to increase my damage output more because I'm not really doing enough yet. And Slice increases your damage output. Even though I don't think Slice is an amazing card, I would probably just suck it up and take it here. And I believe that's what you do. Then we come up to a rest site, I believe. And you choose to smith. And you smith the neutralize. I agree with this decision. Let's see if we can actually just find the list of your deck. Okay, so your options here, I think your options are between neutralize, 1,000 cuts, and footwork. Footwork is a very good upgrade. An extra dexterity is just really good. But as I've been keep saying, I think your deck already produces more than enough block with just the standard footwork and the defensive cards you've got in your deck that you don't need this yet. 1000 Cuts, you want to upgrade this at some point, because I don't think 1000 Cuts is really a very good card until it's upgraded, and then it becomes really good when it is upgraded. And Neutralize is another way to increase your block effectively. I mean, it does it in a different way to actual block, but it basically just reduces the amount of damage you take. But because it's an attack and not a skill, it works better against the Gremlin Knob fight. And I think your deck is actually pretty high powered. I really would like some more damage in it if I were to be comfortable fighting elites, but just the general cards, like these 4 cards, are all very, very good. So I would be interested in taking elite fights here. And I think Neutralize is probably the best card for elite fights. Actually, maybe 1000 Cuts. It's very good in Lagavulin and Tri-Sentry fights, so maybe this is the upgrade actually. I think I would decide between these two, but I think Neutralize is perfectly reasonable. And you choose the Neutralize.
I want this no matter what I do.
And let's just take a look at the path you can take here. So you have to go here, of course, and then you have a choice between an elite and a rest site. I think a rest site is reasonable to take. You have still high priority upgrades in your deck, so I think you probably take that over the elite, but I would certainly consider going this path, which I believe has elites and another rest site in there. Actually, there was something that I meant to say in the last fight. I won't rewind it because it'll take me ages to find, but there was a turn where one of the enemies was on 3 health and you had 1000 Cuts in play. So just playing any 3 cards would have killed that enemy, but you chose to attack it with a strike. I think you won the fight from then on without taking any more damage, so it didn't really make a difference in that case, but you just need to be more careful, basically. This fight with the Slaver.
Okay. Probably can't get away with putting in 1000 Cuts this turn.
Yeah, I agree with not playing 1000 Cuts. This enemy doesn't ramp up its damage in any way, increase its strength, so you don't really need to worry about killing it particularly quickly. It does hit pretty hard, and I think it can weaken you, but it's not as if it's a huge threat. You get pretty unlucky here, actually. Draw no defense on this turn. Sometimes that just happens, you can't really avoid it. You note yourself that you should have done this first if you were planning on doing it.
Okay, so I should have done that first.
Yeah.
But
I think apart from that, you play this fight fine, though. Yeah, you don't take any more damage. This pick is pretty easy. I do think you just take the fumes. You already have 1000 Cuts, which is basically the same effect as Noxious Fumes, scaling damage. But Noxious Fumes is so efficient at what it does, I think you can just take it and be pretty happy. Like Flying Knee isn't a great card, neither is Bouncing Flask, so that's fine. Now let's move on a little bit. So we get the Snecko Skull, so instantly rewarded for the Fumes pick, that's great. And this fight, I don't think I have anything to say about this fight. I think you play it reasonably.
No, I can't. I want to not take damage. I feel like it's worth...
Yeah, I think the Fumes is worth playing here. It damages both of them which means it just does a lot of damage for 1 energy. I think that's a pretty reasonable choice. You only took 1 damage in that fight, so it's fine. Here we have another pick. You end up picking Poison Stab, and I agree with this pick. You need more damage because I would be interested in fighting elites right now, and you need cards like this to fight elites, so I would take it. I think Wandering Winder disagrees because he thinks you have Thousand Cuts and Noxious Fumes, so you want to just make a defensive deck from this point on, and I don't think that is really how you should be approaching this game personally. I think you should build a deck that can beat every fight in the game, and some of the fights you can drag on, or you can allow to drag on, and let your scaling damage do the work, and some of the fights you absolutely can't do that. I guess in Act 1 it's kind of like Tri-Sentinels versus Gremlin Nob or something. Like Gremlin Nob, you're just going to need to play your attacks, kill it as fast as possible. Tri-Sentinels, you can take a slightly more slow approach and have a bit more of a battle of attrition where you're just sort of blocking all of their damage while slowly chipping them down with Thousand Cuts and Fumes. But you currently aren't very good at doing the former and are very good at doing the latter, so I would pick the Poison Stab. And also the poison does play into the Fumes scaling damage a little bit, so it does play both sides, sort of. So I agree with this pick. Maybe I'll talk more on that at some point later. So there really isn't a big window to just like look at the path.
But I have Snecko Skull.
Actually, okay. I don't think the Snecko Skull is necessarily the reason to pick this card in this situation. Anyway, actually you did choose to go this way. I wanted to say that I would have gone this way for sure. Well, maybe not actually, because you didn't have the Poison Stab yet, so the elites are a bit iffy, because you haven't added many cards like that to your deck, which is why I like the Predator and stuff, because it lets you take this path and get 2 elites and a rest site, which is nice. So maybe going this way in this situation isn't bad, but I think I would have wanted to be in a different situation here, so I could have done this. Anyway. So you take the shot, and you say yourself that you've clicked this too fast. You should have just looked at everything first, although I do agree that this is the pick. Other options are like Noxious Fumes plus card remove or something. I don't think this card is amazing. It's 14 damage for 1 energy, which is pretty good, but discarding all non-attack cards is just kind of a strange ability. Grand Finale is very difficult to make work, so I wouldn't pick that. You can't really do anything with that yet. But I think this is just better than Fumes, because you already have a Fumes.
Oh, yes! Maybe I should have looked at this first. But...
Anyway, yeah. I think you take this path because you don't want to fight elites, and I think your deck is incredibly well set up to fight elites now. I think you're not taking very much damage, if any, given these potions you have. It's worth mentioning you have these 3 potions as well, so you should actually just be able to take down most elites without really taking much damage at all, if any. And you choose to take this path, and I think this kind of sort of illustrates what I mean a little bit, in terms of, you say you like that, but you don't say why you like shying away from them. Really, all they're going to do is do damage to you and give you rewards. You've got a lot of health here and 2 potential rests coming up. So you're absolutely in a situation where you can exchange HP for rewards, and actually at this event you do that exact thing. Yeah. So I like to say this event is an elite fight gone wrong. So you end up doing about 15 damage to yourself or something there, maybe more. Was it 25? I guess it was. And you get 1 relic out of it. I don't think, given your deck's current composition, any of the elites do that much damage to you, given your current deck and these potions. And the elites will give you a relic. They give you gold, more gold than a regular fight. They give you a card choice, which has a higher chance of containing a rare card than card choices from normal fights. And they might give you a higher chance of finding a potion, although I'm not entirely sure on that one. So don't quote me on that, but they might do that. So I think if you take the elites, you end up taking less damage and get better rewards than from this event. And I don't think the events really give you sort of more than that on average, if you know what I mean. I just think the elite is much better value for you than the event is. And then your path is scripted from here, but you make some maybe questionable decisions. You rest here. Actually, I think you rested previously and I missed it. I missed you resting before, but you were on 38 HP. And you said that you were in the mindset of not fighting elites as well, so really there is no reason to rest there. The reason to rest there would be because you have the intention of fighting elites, and you're kind of like, I want to rest to give myself more HP, which I can then lose fighting elites because I think the rewards from the elites are more valuable than the upgrade from this rest site. Although I think you probably could have got away with just upgrading and fighting elites there. And then here, so yeah, that first rest, sorry I'm kind of going back and backtracking a bit, but that first rest is not very good if you're not deciding to fight elites, and this second rest I think is just not very good. 33 health is actually perfectly healthy. You're not in any immediate danger. Your deck's very good at blocking. You just have 1 regular enemy before the final boss. So if that fight goes particularly badly, you can just rest at the campfire before the boss anyway. So this is just obviously an upgrade. This fight, so you decide to use a dexterity potion here, and it does literally nothing. You never actually block or the extra block you get from it never actually blocks any damage. You end up overblocking by about 5 every turn, and would have overblocked by 1 if you didn't use the dexterity potion. So it's just a complete waste of a potion. We'll just let the fight play out so we see that. Maybe you forgot that you had the extra energy from the lantern or something? I'm not entirely sure. You don't really say why you use it, you just do. Look here, the dexterity potion has given us 4 block, so without it we're blocking for 17, and we're only getting attacked for 14, so that potion has done nothing.
So who am I gonna kill first? This guy first?
I think that's all I really need to say. I don't think you make too many weird, odd decisions. So here we have another 1,000 cuts. I think we already have more than enough of this effect, so we don't need it. There's a deadly poison. I think we probably already have enough of this effect too, so we don't need this either. And a quick slash, which I also think we don't need at this point in the run either, so I think this is a skip. I think you take the deadly poison.
Because my deck is already going, my build over here is kind of already going in a different direction.
Okay, so you say that your build's going a different direction. I don't really think you think about this game in that way, as I've already said. 1,000 Cuts is just a card that you play in a fight that's going to last for, 4 or 5 more turns or something, and it does a lot of damage for 2 energy if the fight lasts that long. I don't really think you need to sort of combo with it by playing lots of cheap cards or anything, although, like I said before, with choices that are close between 2 cards with a similar purpose, the one that works better with your stuff is the pick, or it will sort of skew you towards that if you're sort of 50-50, if you know what I mean. I didn't really explain that very well. So I think you take the poison. Now we're at the rest site and you're choosing what to upgrade. This is the first or another decision, I guess. You make some decisions to rest, which I think are really bad, but you upgrade a defend, saying you don't want to die. So I guess you need to know what the enemies do, but the Guardian, I believe it blocks itself on turn 1, and then on turn 2 it has 9 block and attacks you for quite a lot, like 30-ish damage, but you have some potions and you might be able to flip it before then. And then when you flip it, it attacks for 10 damage and then 16 damage. Then it flips back and attacks for 20 damage, but it's 5 times 4. And I think that your deck blocks enough to be able to handle all of that already. So I'd just be looking at getting it killed quicker, so 1,000 Cuts on Noxious Fumes upgrade. I think given your funnel, your Snecko Skull, Poison Stab, Deadly Poison, you don't really need a Fumes upgrade. I think 1,000 Cuts upgrade is going to go a long way in this fight and in future fights. It just does its damage a little bit more quickly than Fumes, maybe. But I certainly think your upgrade should be focusing on increasing your damage output rather than increasing your defense. And also, if you wanted to increase your defense, Footwork is for sure the best upgrade. Making all of your cards defend for 1 more is just stronger than making one of your cards defend for 3 more. So this was a bad upgrade, in my opinion. And we have this fight. So with this brew, you choose to keep the strike and the slice. I think I would discard those, just looking to get my 1,000 Cuts and Fumes and Footwork into play as soon as possible. But I don't think that's terrible. I think that's a reasonable use of the potion, and it's okay. I think you play this fight okay for the most part, apart from right at the end you do something silly. So we're getting attacked for 12 and we have exactly 12 block, and this guy has 33 poison. So it's going to take 33 damage this turn, and then before it gets the chance to attack it's going to take 35 damage and die. So this is the last attack that it's going to do. And you choose to play a Poison Stab, I think, and take the spike damage. And that's just completely unnecessary damage. The fight was won at this point already, so that was a small mistake, although not huge. And we come up to the card choices. We've got a bad view here. There we go. So I think these 2 cards, they're not sort of unplayable, or well, they fit into some niche decks, but I think they're both pretty niche cards. Bullet Time maybe gives you a little bit of extra energy, but at the cost of basically being like a dead card, and also it doesn't really give you much energy anyway, and I just rather would just draw another card basically. Storm of Steel, you kind of need synergies with it for it to do anything, and even then I think it's questionable a lot of the time. Malaise, on the other hand, is incredibly strong. You should pick it and be very, very happy. And you do pick it, so that's okay. Although you're not happy enough about picking it, I would like to see some more happiness when you see a Malaise, please, in future. And this pick, okay, the pick is the Dome, although you point out that you don't know the game well enough to sort of feel comfortable taking this, and I think that is a valid point. I'm actually not sure that one extra energy per turn isn't good enough, that you can just do it. You can always like find the wiki or something and look up all the fights if you really want to do that. Although I think for the purposes of this exercise, it's okay to just ignore it because it's not really great for kind of viewing purposes either. So I'm fine with you not taking this. I think you probably realise it is the best one if you do know the game well enough though, so that's fine. So between these two, this basically means you draw one fewer card on the first turn of the fight and one more on all the other turns, so it's good in longer fights basically. But I think our deck's already very good in longer fights, so we don't really need that. And also we have that Inert card, the Backstab, and Inert cards work really nicely with the 2 extra cards on turn 1, so I do think that the Pyramid is better than the Snake Ring, although I think you don't necessarily make the best use of the Pyramid in this run. So we go into the first fight, check my notes quickly. Okay, one more thing I wanted to note about Act 1 as well is that after you took the second rest, the only damage you actually received was that 3 damage at the end of the Guardian fight that you could have avoided by not playing the attack. So that rest didn't really achieve anything. You probably just overestimated how threatening the Guardian is because it's really not particularly threatening. It's the easiest Act 1 by far. So you could have got an upgrade in there. And also I think, given the path that you took and how much damage you took, you also wouldn't have died if you didn't rest at the first campfire. Of course you don't know that, like a bad draw maybe could kill you if you don't rest, but I think resting at that point was wrong because you have more campfires in the future and you can reevaluate whether you want to rest or upgrade there. Also, the earlier you upgrade, the more fights you have the upgraded card for, so the more value you get out of it over the course of the run. Anyway, this fight... Okay, so another point is that, again, you didn't really look at the full act first. We should look at what our boss is. It is the Collector. Okay, so the Collector means a few things. AoE damage is very nice in the Collector fight. We have Fumes and 1000 Cuts doing that, so we're fairly well set up for that. So perhaps, yeah, I think our scaling damage for the boss fight is already basically in place, so we're just trying to survive the act and maybe increase our defense now. I think the time for the front-loading cards, it's not coming to an end yet, actually. They're still very good in Act 2, but after we take the fight at the end of this act, those cards are going to drop off in value a little bit in Act 3. This fight, I think you play okay. Actually, there's probably a turn where you can melees, but you don't. I guess we can just watch this fight and see. Watch this fight, please. So you scroll up to like the halfway point and then don't look any further. You need to look at the entire act so you can choose what you do. So you clear all the artifacts off it this turn. Getting the footwork in play is nice. We probably kill this thing through poison. So this hand isn't great. You draw way too many defends. Perhaps because you removed the strike and didn't really add many attacks to your deck. And here is the turn where I think you can play melees.
Alright, this feels important.
So that blocks for 7, these block for 5, so these are 12 altogether, you're getting attacked for 22. And then a melees will reduce its damage to 10 times 2, and then weaken it, which makes it do 25% less. So I believe that makes it do 8 times 2. Or maybe it's 7 times 2. I can't remember how it rounds exactly. I think it rounds down, so I think it's I think it does 8 times 2. Or I don't know. I can't remember. But either way, that is excuse me. That is 6 damage it's stopping. Or 8 if it is 7. And I think you just choose to defend survivor, which blocks for less this turn than the melees would, than a defend survivor melees would, and also the melees lingers for the entire fight, so it's going to be attacking for 1 less damage on each of its hits for the rest of the fight. So melees is the clear play over the second defend. Yeah, you play the defend. So this is just a case of calculating things. Also, you just play the melees. There's no reason to do that at all. You've got the pyramid, so it stays in your hand. You're drawing 5 cards, so it's not sort of blocking you from, drawing any more extra cards because of the maximum hand size. There's no reason to play melees there for nothing. So that was a misplay on this fight. Melees misplays are quite common, I think, in this run going forward. Anyway, let's look at your card choice. What am I thinking here? Caltrops is really good in Act 2, actually. It does a lot of damage on pretty much all of the Act 2 hallway fights and elites. So I would consider that. Sucker Punch is another source of weak, although I think it's probably the worst source of weak the Silent has available to apart from maybe some weird colourless card or something. So I'm not thrilled to pick this. It is upgraded, which is nice, but I don't think you need it here. I think you pick Prepared, which is Prepared is just not a very good card at all. So imagine a Dominion card that said +1 card, +1 action, discard a card. Like, that card would be, you know, bad to have, right? That card would be worse than nothing, because all it's really doing is reducing your hand size by 1. And this card, it kind of does that, right? That's basically what the effect of this card is. I think the only defense for this card is that you have a runic pyramid, so maybe it lets you get some cards that are clogging up your hand out of your hand or something, but I think that's a pretty weak defense. This card is okay when you upgrade it, but that has a huge opportunity cost because you need to use an upgrade on it, and I don't think it's good enough that it's worth upgrading, picking it and upgrading it over just skipping it and upgrading a different card like 1,000 Cuts or whatever. I believe you take the Prepared. I don't think you really give any reason for it, but it's not a good pick. Here we have the Vampires event. This event is good sometimes and is not good sometimes, basically. I think in this situation it isn't very good. 30% of your max HP will, I think, actually reduce your current HP. Maybe I'm counting wrong. You've already removed a strike, and this adds 5 bites, so you're kind of increasing the number of fairly weak attack cards back up to 5 again. And the healing 2 HP whenever you play one of these things is really, really good, but I think it's not worth it in this situation. You also have this pyramid, so maybe these bites just get stranded in your hand, start clogging up your hand. I think skipping here is correct. Oh, is this a different event now? Yes, it is. Okay, well, let's just move on. I think taking the events in Act 2 is probably smart. Pay gold to remove a card. I think in Act 2 this is just worth doing, although I think Prepared is the worst card in your deck. So maybe you should have removed that. Just let this play through. Okay, so you decide to take the Writhe. I don't think that's worth doing. You have the Pyramid, so that Writhe is gonna stay in your hand until you can discard it with the Survivor or the Prepared as well, I guess. But that's pretty awful. I don't think that's worth a relic. I could maybe be convinced otherwise. This event on the higher ascensions becomes 100% chance to give you the curse, so maybe it's worth the coin flip, but I'm not really convinced. Pillow's an okay relic though. Okay, so now we're duplicating. Footwork is the card that I would be most excited to duplicate here. I would think I would duplicate Footwork. If you'd upgraded the Footwork at the end of Act 1, it would be even better, but you upgraded the Defend for some reason. I mean, maybe there's some logic of if you aren't duplicating that Defend, then maybe it's not valuable enough that it was worth using an upgrade to get. But I don't know. I don't know whether that's actually solid logic.
I think you upgrade the fumes. I don't really think you need to do that. I think you have enough of this effect already. Just getting an upgrade on one of these two cards will solve, well, it won't really solve anything, it'll just make you even better at it. I would do the footwork.
Probably get an extra noxious fumes. An extra neutralize.
Neutralize would be okay as well, actually. This is a really strong event, by the way. Okay, so we have the Gremlin Leader. What do I want to say about this fight? Well, this fight, the AI is actually fairly sort of manipulatable. Is that a word? I guess I should just say you can manipulate this guy's AI a decent amount. So I think when he's got two gremlins, he never summons, and he alternates between attacking and blocking himself and buffing the strength. Whichever one he starts off with is random though. So if you leave these guys alive, then he will attack next turn 100%. If you kill one of them, I think it gets a 25% chance to resummon. So it'll summon two more gremlins. I think that's 25% chance. And if you kill two, I think it goes up to a 75% chance to summon gremlins again. So the general tactic in this fight is to kill off the gremlins so he keeps summoning more, while your cards like Thousand Cuts and Poison sort of starts chipping it down. And of course you can throw attacks onto it when that's doable as well. Okay, what do you do here? You can kill both the gremlins here, and I think you take the line that does that. If you like cuts,
I think it's worth putting it
backstab this one, neutralize this one, defend malaise or something, kills both the gremlins, I think. We can probably just skip along a little bit, because it take a while to work it out, which is good, by the way. Yeah, so these two guys both died to the poison because you took that line. I think that's pretty reasonable. And now he summons again because you killed the gremlins. I think you play this fight okay. There is one thing that you do. 31-45. This is close enough. Yeah, so you've got 2 energy, and this gremlin's on 5 health with 3 poison, so you need to do 2 more damage to it, and the poison will kill it. And you have Thousand Cuts in play, so any 2 cards played will do that damage, and I think you choose to strike it to kill it.
So this is effectively blocked.
Yeah. That would have died to the Thousand Cuts, so you should have just defend survived, and it would have died anyway. But I think apart from that, you play the fight reasonably well. And we come out of it on 27. So this is an after image 100% of the time. After image is incredibly strong. It just blocks for a lot and only costs 1 energy. It's very, very strong. Calculated Gamble is like okay, but I think with the pyramid you can already sort of set things up, and the gamble just kind of spoils that. I don't think it works particularly well with pyramid. And Bane I don't think you're particularly interested in. You just don't need this effect anymore. So this is a very, very clear after image for me. Like, the strength on this card is very high. You know, some cards are rare and they're kind of situational, and some cards are rare just because they're very, very strong, and After Image is one of those cards. It's very, very strong.
I also like killing things.
Okay, we skipped a bit more than I wanted there. No, go back a little bit. Okay, let's just
I like not dying.
yeah, you keep saying I like not dying. You just have to. I don't know. I just think you need to think about things a little bit more
I also like killing
thoroughly than
things.
that, I guess.
I'm gonna go with this though.
Okay. I think the campsite is valuable, so I would take it. On 23 health, I think a rest is very reasonable. Actually, do I? Ooh, no, I don't think a rest is reasonable there. So you've got a shop, and then a chest, and then another rest. So you're taking no damage before your next rest site. So you can just delay this. Maybe you get a relic or a regeneration potion or something, which basically functions as a rest. You know, a relic like a mango. You probably just take the mango and don't bother resting. Something like that. I think you are better off just having more information. You know what I mean? You could take a third fumes. Don't think you need to.
I think another notches fumes, or I remove a card.
I think a card removal is reasonable here. You could also take this liquid bronze and try and fight. That's very good in both of the two elite fights you can face, so I would consider that. I think a card remove is perfectly fine here, though. Get the war paints, which upgrades that prepared for you, so it's no longer completely useless. I think taking this campsite is perfectly reasonable. You say you like this path, I don't like that path. You currently have 51 gold and aren't going to get much more gold, or aren't likely to get much more gold along here. So this floor is almost a waste. And I think the last floor before the boss is a pretty valuable floor. You're going to know very much what you want to do to your deck with the boss coming up. Your deck will be at quite a powerful state now that you've got through 2 whole acts, so an elite is reasonable, although I guess you have to fight the elite here. Yeah, I think your deck can fight another elite. This funnel's very, very good against the 3 slavers. And I think you just block enough and have a malaise, so the Book of Stabbing isn't very threatening either. I think you actually line up very well against the 2 possible elites. I'm not sure whether I mentioned this yet, but you can't fight the same elite fight twice in a row. So this elite is definitely Slavers or Book of Stabbing. And I think your deck is actually quite strong against both of those at the moment. Definitely don't rest, of course.
Okay.
I think cuts, footwork, malaise are the 3 best options here. And you upgraded defend for some reason. I don't understand this. I really don't understand why you would think that that is the best thing to do. So here you have a turn, you're getting attacked for 12. So what you can just do here is defend or cloak and dagger, then malaise for 3. So this starts attack. So this gets reduced to 3 times 2 and weakened down to 2 times 2. So the defend blocks all of that for you, or the cloak, and then this guy is on -3 strength for the rest of the fight and is not a threat at all. Because you have the pyramid, you're not missing out too much by not playing these this turn. You can just play them next turn. I think you end up not taking any damage in this fight anyway, because it's actually a really easy fight, considering you're so late into the act. Yeah, you take no damage anyway. Okay, there was one small thing I wanted to point out. I think next turn after this. So you choose to play the neutralize this turn, and it's not attacking you this turn, and you have the pyramid, so you can just save the neutralize until when it is attacking you,
I would think about playing
and maybe get more value out of the because you would have 5 cards in hand, so you're not losing out any draw. You also play this out, which I think is okay. Should have played the unupgraded one, yeah. But yeah, you should have saved the neutralize until it was actually attacking to get, you know, more turns where the weak could do something. Then we get the card choice. I skip here. I don't think you need any of these cards. I think you take the deadly poison. I just don't think you need that card in your deck. It doesn't let you beat any fights that you wouldn't beat already, and it's just a card that doesn't block. So I think it actually makes you worse against a lot of fights. So this event you took is another shop, and of course you have barely any gold. I think the consideration here is basically a fire potion. It's okay against this boss, but given that I think you have another shop approaching, saving up money is fine. Oh, did you buy a prepared here? I think you did. Again, this is really, really bad. The card just doesn't do anything. You now have a gamble and a prepared plus, so I think the argument of it getting cards out of your hand for pyramid is now completely irrelevant rather than just being kind of questionable. You have another shop after this one fight, I believe, if I remember the act layout correctly, so saving up gold to buy something nice is going to be valuable. It's just really, really bad to do that. Yeah. And you get a fight here. Actually, there's I remember a while ago Jake was saying he hates this fight and think it should be weakened because he thinks it's a lot stronger than all the other fights in Act 2. I disagree with that anyway. I don't really think it's that much stronger. Also, in Act 1, in the same pool of enemies, there's a fight that is just one slaver on its own. And there's another fight that's like a slaver with a slime or something. Also in Act 2, you can fight a chosen on its own like you did previously. Or you could also fight like a chosen plus a bird. And I believe they're in the same pool. So some fights being harder than others is really not a thing unique to this enemy, if you know what I mean. It's kind of an intentional part of the game. Maybe that single cultist fight is only in the first 3 fights, actually. You didn't take many fights early, so I think that might have just been you getting a late fight that was from the early pool. Anyway, rambling on. Yeah, okay. I think there's another turn in here where you can play Malaise. Malaise is incredible in this fight because it always attacks in bursts of 3, so the strength reduction counts 3 times. Let's see. Could probably skip through some of this fight. Okay, so this turn you can consider playing Malaise here, I think. Maybe. It blocks for like 3, maybe maybe you want to do something else with your energy this turn. Let's just see the turn to see whether Malaise is actually good.
Better hand size. Oh well.
I like skipped forward, then just skipped back to the same point, didn't I? So what do you do this turn? Okay, so you play the footwork. I don't think footwork's very good this turn. It blocks for 4 this turn. Let's see, if you defend plus, you can't avoid all the damage this turn, so I think your best play is just defend plus defend Malaise. I think that reduces the most damage, unless I'm mistaken. Or maybe footwork is better than Malaise in this case. You kind of want to play the Malaise on the turn when he doesn't attack, and then it's ridiculous. Maybe this is fine, actually. So on this turn when he's not attacking, I think you just burn the Malaise for no reason again. Which might have been my issue with this turn. I didn't make thorough notes on this turn. It was something to do with Malaise. I think it might have just been playing the Malaise for no reason. Yeah, okay. So this guy, I believe he attacks twice, or I think when it attacks twice, it has to debuff you the next turn. I don't think it can attack more than twice in a row. So you know it's not going to be attacking you next turn, so you know next turn you can just put all of your energy into Malaise, and now it attacks you for 9 every turn instead of 18, which is obviously insane, blocking for 9 damage every turn for the rest of the fight. I think you don't end up taking any more damage this fight. Oh, you take 1 more damage. I think if you played the Malaise, you probably wouldn't have taken any more damage, but 1 damage isn't huge. Anyway, you take a Catalyst. Again, I don't think you need it. I just don't think you need that Catalyst to beat the boss or any of the fights in the game. Catalyst is nice against things like the Champ, where they have a much tougher second half of the fight, and they also clear all their debuffs before then, so clear all the poison. You can kind of build up a lot of poison, then Catalyst it, and kind of skip the second half of the fight almost. But I don't think you really need it in this fight. Like, it's not awful, but I just don't think, especially given that you have 2 deadly poisons in your deck as well, I just don't think you need that. So if you didn't spend that money on the prepared, you'd have like 25 or 26 more gold or something, so like 80 gold. Could have bought another Catalyst, I guess. Because if you've got 1 Catalyst, may as well have 2, just go for the full Catalyst.
What is this?
But you can also consider a potion, actually.
Nothing I can afford looks super appealing.
You never really look at the potions, but I would consider one.
I don't think.
Anyway, you rest here, and I don't think you really get much value out of that. I don't really think you need to rest. I think an upgrade is more valuable to you.
I think I want to try to get away with smithing.
Like, you're saying I don't want to try and get away with it, but I don't think you're in a very vulnerable position. You're on a lot of health and you've got 2 potions which also help you block.
Alright, here it goes.
You know, I think maybe you're just in the mindset of, oh, not resting must be greedy, when you should actually look at sort of the numbers and how likely you actually are to die, you know. If not resting actually gives you a chance to die when resting doesn't, that is like risky and greedy. Whereas I don't think you have a chance to die if you upgrade here in this fight. With these. Actually, I think
Powers.
an upgrade to footwork probably blocks for more than 18 in this fight anyway, potentially. But that's a nice first turn. You've got a lot of poison stacked up and fusing point.
The fight's going so well that I don't have to. Okay.
I didn't put any notes in this fight, so I think you play it reasonably. I'm just going to skip it because it's a pretty long fight, and I think there's not too much to talk about during it, so we may as well just skip through. Okay. This card choice, Nightmare, is interesting. I think it becomes better because you have the pyramid, so it becomes easy to line it up with like a footwork or something. So I do think it's a consideration. It is, of course, very expensive and slow to get going, so not viable in some fights, but I think on the whole, it's actually fairly easy to pull off in Act 3. Like, the only real fights that are gonna punish you too hard are the ones involving orb walkers and maybe the exploders. I guess the darklings could, depending on when they decide to attack. Take a small sip of water. The other option is just another Malaise. Malaise isn't great against many of the Act 3 hallway fights. It's quite nice against the Nemesis elites, but I think that's the easiest elites by quite a big distance. So it's not super important to have a card that's good in that fight. It's okay against the Orb Walkers, actually. Not brilliant against Giant Head. It's also very, very good against Time Eater and Awakened One. So that is another thing. I think I would take the Nightmare here, actually. I think your deck makes pretty good use of a Nightmare. And we go on to the card choices. Sorry, the relic choices. So, Tiny House, you know, there's no downside to this, apart from, you know, the opportunity cost. It's just, you know, a few nice little bits and pieces. I think you need an energy relic. 4 energy is so strong. So the question is whether seeing fewer cards or missing out on some relics / taking a curse is the better option. And I think it's close, actually. You're probably only going to see one more chest in this run, so this is only like 1 curse / missing 1 relic. Whereas you're still going to see quite a lot of cards, so this could be bad. But I actually think your deck already, with a few upgrades, is already pretty well set up against Act 3. So I think the crown is actually worth it. I think the relic is quite valuable. I'll also note that if you took the dome, and you already had 4 energy, I think I would take Tiny House here. You know, it just gives you a few nice things and no downside. I think it's fairly difficult for decks to make great use of a 5th energy. Just the fights that are in the game, none of them really need a 5th energy to be beatable. Like, the game's kind of balanced in a way that you can beat on 3 energy per turn, and having 5 is just kind of overkill. There are diminishing returns there, for sure. So let's see. You probably don't look at the map enough. Actually, what was the boss? That looks like Time Eater. But yeah, you don't look too hard. We've got a campfire before the elite on this side. You can get like 2 events. I think this is the path you want to take. Looking at what I've seen of the act, I don't know whether stuff that happens later on makes this side better. Oh, no, I do. Okay, you do look at the whole thing briefly. I'm not sure why you settle on that side, but we've harped on about you needing to think about that more enough. I haven't got any notes in this fight, so I'll just skip it. It's pretty long, and I don't know, Wandering Wind has got quite a lot of good comments, so he might have covered anything in this fight. Let's hope he did. See our card choice. I think it's fairly obviously not viable. Oh, actually, I want to talk about Tactician a little bit. Tactician could be okay in this deck. With the Runic Pyramid, you can line it up with your discard outlets pretty easily, so it might be good. I'm not entirely sure. I think if I took the Nightmare, I would be more inclined to take it. I might have taken the 5th energy as well if I took the Nightmare, actually. But in your deck, maybe you don't get enough out of it. I think this fight is fairly straightforward. You just want to kill the Exploders first because they blow up and do like 30 damage, and that's not great. Okay, that's the transient fight, so. See our card reward here, get a potion, that's very nice. Outmaneuver again, I think Runic Pyramid means you can potentially make better use of this. I think this is just a bad card in the average deck. Runic Pyramid or Well-Laid Plans probably make it more viable, but I'm not sure whether your deck actually needs that effect in it. And then we have the Transient fight. I think play it okay. There was one thing I wanted to point out, is that you're probably aware of it, but when it's weakened, because the strength applies, the minus strength applies before the weak, basically, so when it's weakened, doing 5 damage to it won't necessarily reduce how much it's attacking you for by 5. It will reduce like its base attack damage by 5, and then that will get reduced by 25%, so it might end up being less than 5. Probably will. That's just a small thing. I think you play the fight okay apart from that. Man, I remember the first time the Transient came out, and I had no idea what it did. I didn't read what it did properly, and I died horribly to it. So we got another potion, running good on the potions, set up. Pretty awful. We've got this event, so this has almost no downside to it. Like, the Act 1 bosses are so easy in Act 3, like, they aren't particularly tough to beat at the end of Act 1 for the most part. Like, they can be, depending on how well the act goes, of course, but they're generally not that threatening. And I think they're easier than like every single fight in Act 3, so this is almost a free relic. and you also get money and a card choice and a potion as well, I think, from it, which is really good. This I occasionally take. I mean, you are on a lot of health, so if you think you can do this and the upgrades are valuable and you're not going to take any more damage before the boss, this can be quite strong, but you're so far away from the boss, I don't think it's really worth it. You're probably going to take some damage. And then this, you need a way to deal with the curses, basically. If you can hit shops and remove them, or you have like an Omamori or something, 999 gold is kind of crazy. I think I had a run once where I had the courier and a Juzu bracelet, and there was like a path that had, you know, no fights, all events and shops and rest sites. So I just took this and it was incredible. But I think you need kind of weird situations for this to be worth taking. So the boss is certainly the one that you take the most often. There's another misplay you make with melees in this fight, I think. I think you take no damage in the fight, so it doesn't matter, but oh, we took a bit of damage there. So if you just play a defend and play a melees, you take no damage this turn, because the melees reduces this attack by 3 down to 5 times 2. And then the weakness turns that into like 4 or 3 times 2, so blocking for 10 blocks all of that. And then the Guardian has -3 strength for the rest of the fight and basically doesn't do any damage to you. I'm not sure what you do exactly, but that is, you know, a very, very powerful thing to do.
So he loses 4 strength and takes that down to 6. Takes it down. I think I still take damage.
You seem to be with melees just thinking about playing it for all of your energy or not playing it at all. And normally you do need to block a little bit before you play it, at least, unless you're like literally not getting attacked. Like even just melees here, it inflicts weak like the neutralize does. You don't get as much damage off this turn, but you can just do that next turn. And again, you play it for no reason, because you could just do that next turn. So that's a misplay. I think you don't take any damage in this fight anyway, because it's such an easy fight. You're still on 61 here, I think this is the end. So, you know, it wasn't a huge thing, but hopefully at least talking about it lets you know how good melees is. So you get a dead branch, that is ridiculous. Very, very strong relic indeed. Although, that's another one you don't make great use of. Here is an example of it. So, you're getting attacked for 18, and you have no cards that block. Inflicting weak with neutralize ends up making you take more thorns damage than the weakness blocks. But you have these two cards that exhaust when you play them. So you can dig for blocks with Dead Branch. This one costs 0, so first thing you do is backstab this, see what you get, and then you can think about catalyzing or whatever. And what do you do? What did you just do there? I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so you deadly poison this guy. That's okay, you probably want to do that before the catalyst, maybe. Although I'm not sure you actually do. I think just... You know, just, you miss out on the poison if you catalyst first, of course, but I think you just want to... You take the attack potion for some reason. I think Predator's the correct one to take, but I'm not quite sure why you do that. And now you're just doing other things before you play this catalyst. And then finally you find the backflip. And if you drew into 2 defensive cards there, maybe you want to play them both. You end up taking 1 damage, so it's not too bad, but you know, you want to be digging for things with the branch in situations like that, I think. Rest of the fight I don't think is too bad. We can just talk about the card choice. Fire potion, not too bad. Sucker, I don't like her, skip that. Take the elite, which is mandatory, and it's an easy one.
I feel like I'm okay to fight this guy.
Get a good first hand with all your fumes. I think you play this fight reasonably well. Maybe there's 1 or 2 small things, but I think we can just skip it. Just so this video doesn't get too long. So on here, unloads just kills and also would discard the burn, so it solves all the problems. You could also just play defend to save it. Ice Cream, I think this relic's pretty overrated. It doesn't... I don't think it actually does particularly much. Okay, so this shop, you make a pretty big misplay. You decide that you want this for some reason, because you think the artifact is good. So the Time Eater does make you vulnerable or something occasionally, but it's not that big of a deal. The 2 elites you could fight, none of those give you debuffs and artifact effects. The only real fight left in Act 3 that does a particularly nasty debuff is the Spire Growth that constricts you. So there's like 1 fight left that you could face in this run that the artifact is really good against, and it's not even a particularly tough fight, but also, more importantly, you already have an ancient potion, so you already have access to an artifact. So I think this relic actually just doesn't do anything. I don't think it really does anything, no. So options you have, Die is a good card, but I don't think you need that effect anymore. Cloak is okay, but against the Time Eater it might be a little bit iffy. Same with Infinite Blades. A card remove is good, and I actually think this Bronze Potion is very good against Time Eater. The Time Eater attacks with a like triple hit attack fairly often, which is 9 damage whenever he does that. And that adds up quite quickly. I think this just does a lot of damage to the Time Eater, and I don't think any of the other options are particularly viable. So I think you discard this Vulnerable Potion, or actually I think you discard the Artifact Potion actually. I just don't think Artifact does much for you anymore. Take this and card remove like a strike or something. I think this actually just doesn't help you in any way.
Ooh, starting with an artifact, solid.
You just say it's solid, but if you actually evaluate the possible enemies you could encounter, it doesn't do anything, basically. The other reason to take this would be if you had one of the potions, or if you could also buy one of the potions that gives you 5 strength or dex until end of turn, because that the artifact negates the you losing it at the end of turn, so it turns that into a permanent 5 in strength boost, which is going to let you be very powerful in the time meter fight. But you can't really do that here, so I think Hard Remove and Thorns Potion is... This is the Thorns Potion, right? I think it is. Maybe it's a completely different potion and I'm talking rubbish. I'm pretty sure that is the Thorns one. So we can just go on ahead into the next fight. These guys, the artifact, doing nothing. And we also draw no block cards, which removing a strike from the shop would have been useful for. And maybe it's worth mentioning, I keep talking about how good removing a strike would have been there, whereas at the start of the run I was saying I don't like removing strikes. And I don't think that's me being inconsistent. I think it's just, you know, in Act 1, strikes are quite good or sort of necessary, maybe. And then in Act 3, maybe they're not so good. I guess putting a Dominion spin on it is like, you know, actually, maybe, sort of, you know, you buy silver quite often in Dominion in the opening, and sometimes that silver is not necessarily something you want to stay in your deck. You know, sometimes your like ideal end deck doesn't have a silver in it if you're trying to build like a perfectly functional deck or something. I mean, we all know that's not a great way to play the game, but you know what I'm trying to say, I think. In some decks, you sort of buy the silver to afford 5 costs, and then the silver doesn't necessarily retain its value particularly well towards the end of the game, and I think you should be looking at adding the attack cards and keeping strikes in Act 1 as sort of like that, where they kind of let you fight elites and get these rewards, sort of how like silver lets you buy 5s. I don't know. It's maybe not a great analogy, it maybe doesn't make much sense, but I think it's maybe one way to look at it. And is it that Dominion spin? Because I believe most of the people who watch this are going to be people from the Dominion and making luck Discord kind of side of things. But yeah, punish here for not removing a strike. You obviously would have drawn like a defend if you didn't remove a strike. You wouldn't have drawn, you know, another card that doesn't block. Anything I want to say about this fight? Not really. I have something to say about the card that you pick at the end of this fight, though. These Darkling fights also really drag on. So, McBain, you have what, like 5-8 floors left of the game or something? I don't think this really does anything in any of the fights. Like, I just don't think 1 energy for 14 damage is valuable at this point in the run. Like, that would be great in Act 1. Not very good now, so maybe you add this in Act 1 if you have a funnel. You don't add it to your deck now. It makes your deck worse, I think. And you end up picking it, I believe, and then taking... Okay. Oh, did I miss an event or something? Or was the event the fights? This is 42nd floor.
This is probably
Okay, the event was the fight, okay. We didn't miss anything. So, all throughout Act 1 and Act 2, you were avoiding elites when you were on like 50 plus health with 3 potions. And now that you're in Act 3 on 20 health with 2 potions, all of a sudden, and also the weakest elites has been removed from the elite pool because you can't fight the same 2 elites at once. So this is going to be one of the 2 scary elites. Now you decide to take elite fights. I think that's a little bit odd. I do think that this path is very nice, and if you could take it, you should, but I do think it's odd that you're so opposed to elite fights up until right now, where you're actually just going to do it. And you're on a dangerous amount of HP for Act 3, I think. I mean, I'm staring down the Guardian, I don't really think 20 HP is that dangerous, on this difficulty level at least. Okay, Pantograph is nice if you can survive for it, but it doesn't help you immediately. Okay. So, I think this is the single hardest fight for your deck left in the game, and you called it manageable, which I found a little bit amusing. But these guys, they hit hard from the outset, they ramp up their damage quickly, they shove loads of burns into your deck. It's a scary fight indeed. This funnel does quite a lot of work. But anyway, you make a number of misplays in this fight. Actually, this is the last fight, so I think we can just watch through it and talk about this on a turn-by-turn basis. So, let's see. You're getting attacked for 27. And you can block for, this would be 10, 17 maximum. I don't remember, is this a gambler's brew? I always forget the colour the potions are. Also, being colourblind doesn't help. It looks quite similar to the strength potion to my eyes. So that's a brew. You can certainly consider using it here and discard like Deadly Poison and Strike, but the first thing you should do is just play the Backstab and see what you get from the Dead Branch. The first thing you do is play Footwork, which is reasonable. You're probably playing that, and Blocking, which I think you do want to do, but maybe the Backstab gives you some card draw and you draw something better to use your energy on than that Defend. And now you, okay, here's a brew. So now you use the Gambler's Brew. You need to dig for things with this first. There's no downside. Oh, well, there's no upside to saving this. Also, I think that this fight will last for long enough that getting a Fumes into play on turn 1 will be worth doing. So I think discarding the Fumes there is a mistake. I think on turn 1, Fumes does enough damage to be worth playing. So you're really not making good use of... Again, you just discard the Backstab. Why do you do that? These, you know, these guys, they just attack for loads. You need to kill them quickly before they go out of control, and yeah, I guess you just overlooked that or something. I find it very strange. So now you're blocking for everything. I think that the outmaneuver is actually reasonable there, with the pyramid and the ice cream. The energy is going to be valuable, and you don't need to block. And the catalyst, you know, you can wait a little bit on that. So here we can neutralise to get it weak. This deadly poison is going to represent quite a lot of damage, so we want to get that out. We are blocking for 20, so we need to find 9 more blocks somehow. And this is your second big misplay. We're taking 9 damage currently, and we have 3 energy. There's no noxious fumes, so this catalyst is actually going to get less value as the turns go on, because the poison's going to go down. So you clearly want to catalyst, look for a block card from Dead Branch, and then play on from there, whereas you just end turn now. You say saving this for some reason, but I don't know why you're saving it, because the poison's going to go down. So you're getting attacked for 30. So now you do it. Get a gamble, okay. Spending a lot of energy on attacks here, which...
Very real chance I don't kill this guy.
Playing the shivs is okay, I guess, but not sure. I do think you now want to use Catalyst to... Well, I guess you can dig first, that's okay. Catalyst kills this one, so I think that's a pretty clear play, which I think you do make. The Defend Plus will block all the damage from the other guy as well. I think you play this turn okay. Bane, not amazing in this situation. Okay, this turn, getting attacked for 20 and we're on 11, so we're going to have to find some block from somewhere. Neutralise is very nice. Let's go down to 15. And one strange thing you do here is you have another defend in hand, which makes you block for 14, which is almost all of the damage, but you play the gamble. It's not awful, because you're very likely to find another defense card, but I do find it odd. Survivor's okay there, yeah. I think you want to play Crippling Cloud over Fumes there. It's going to do more poison damage immediately, set up weak for hopefully the rest of the fight, and also effectively draw a card with a branch. And I guess you finally get to play this backstab. You play the strike first, which is another mistake, again because of the Dead Branch. You are just not, you're just not leveraging this Dead Branch at all in this fight, and it's such a powerful effect. Like, I think playing the Terror would have been much better than playing the Strike, because you get to see another card, and the Terror should just represent more than 6 damage. So, again, you're just missing out on a lot because you're not using this Dead Branch effectively. Okay, this turn. You've got 2 Defend Pluses, so you're still relatively safe. You could consider Defend Plus Malaise. I actually think this fight was very winnable if you played it better with the Dead Branch. So the defends are smart. Slice, like sure, you're gonna play the slice. I think malaise is reasonable. Okay, so you do that. You take 1 point of damage, but that's acceptable.
Take 1 damage now. Yeah, they're quite malaise.
And this turn, okay, so you are getting attacked for 21, you're on 10 health, so you need to block 12 damage. You also got 4 more points of damage incoming, and this guy's on 48, so how much damage can we do altogether? This is 8 plus 6, so 14, and then another 12, so we're doing 26 damage, 32 with the existing poison, so we can't kill. So we're going to have to find some block from somewhere, and that place is going to have to be the dead branch. So Terror is the first play. You can just wait and see what exactly you do. I think you do play the Terror first, so you get that correct at least. Well, you should count and see if you can kill at this point.
Sorry, it's the attack numbers not broken down. Let's see. I could apply poison. 12 damage.
I didn't think you thought for so long. I'm just trying to think about something I want to say here, and there isn't. So sorry about that awkward pause. I kind of got lost in my own thoughts for a second there. Okay, I should have skipped one. You do play it first, and this concentrate is potentially a godsend. So it gives you energy to play this Crippling Cloud and look for another card, either that can kill or that can block. But for some reason, you discard the Crippling Cloud. I don't really understand why. You spent a while thinking, so I'm assuming you worked out that these cards couldn't kill, and of course can't block for enough. So I'm not entirely sure why you decided to discard that. You also, of course, play the defend when that doesn't stop you from dying for some reason. Then you play the 1000 cut second, so you're missing out on a cut. When also the 2 strikes sort of do more damage than the 1000 cuts, and yeah, that was just kind of the slow concede. So you end up dying, and I think on almost every turn in that fight, there was some kind of pretty significant misplay you did. You just didn't make use of the dead branch at all, really. I think dead branch is arguably the strongest relic. but you have to kind of play your cards in an order that, lends itself to taking advantage of it, and you didn't. So I actually think if you, can we just zip back and look at the act? A little bit backwards from here. Here we go. So you were here. If you win this fight, you can just rest up, get something nice here maybe, get an upgrade maybe. You rest for quite a lot because of this, so probably don't need to rest twice. Maybe you do. One more fight, and I think you're in a pretty good situation just to take out the Time Eater. And I think that fight would have been winnable. It wasn't just the last turn that you misplayed. I understand that even if you did play that Crippling Cloud on the last turn, you might still have just died there, but if you played the fight better leading up to that point, I think you would have won the fight. So, yeah, I think ultimately misplaying here was what killed you. But in terms of your decision making, I think apart from that Bane that you picked up, most of your card choices were kind of like defendable, like questionable at worst. I don't think there was anything that was glaringly obviously awful. Maybe passing up like an after image is awful. Maybe you just don't have as much experience with that card because it's rare, so didn't realise quite how powerful it is, but that card is incredibly powerful. It just blocks for so much and only costs 1 energy. Kind of like it's basically just another variation on footwork, really. What else? I think I don't value card removal in Act 1 quite as highly as most other people, because I like to kill elites, so I like strikes in my deck to strike those elites. You passed up on elites when you were quite healthy and had a lot of potions, and also when you couldn't fight the Gremlin Leader, which was potentially the hardest elite for your deck, between Gremlin Leader and Slavers. But I think starting off poisoning all the Slavers by 5 makes that fight last quite a lot less time, and the backstab's really nice to get one dead quickly, so I think you were pretty well set up against Slavers. So I would have taken an elite in Act 2 at the end instead of that path with the shop that was useless. What else is there to take away? Just pathing in general can be improved, I guess. Just think about things more. Sometimes I even just go through each node, like, okay, fight, add a card, event, could be anything, add another card here. This elite, how much damage am I expecting to take? I don't know. Maybe not quite as in-depth as that, but sometimes I do go through each individual fight and try and envision roughly how my deck is looking. I don't know, maybe I'm talking rubbish there. I don't really do that very often at all, actually. I think I did it once last night when it was really late and I maybe wasn't thinking straight, so maybe don't listen to that. The other thing is your upgrades. I think, which card you upgrade is a pretty interesting decision a lot of the time, so there's a lot of room for debate there, although upgrading defense is very rarely the best use of your upgrade. And I think that's about it. Hopefully you got something useful out of this, and hopefully it's not too long, and hopefully that disturbance in the middle wasn't too bad. Anyway, I'll sign off now. Thanks for listening, and see ya!